Cinderella is one of the most famous fairy tales. So much so that there's so many remakes and retellings of the same story over and over again. And when I mean over and over again, I mean there are at least 12 movies titled Cinderella. However, today we aren't even going to be talking about a movie with Cinderella in the name. We are going to be talking about The Slipper and the Rose, a lesser known Cinderella story tale. The movie starts off with a long credit sequence, and then we are finally introduced to our first characters, the prince and his servant slash best friend, John. Usually, the prince is supposed to be cute, right? Well, we get this instead. Fun fact, the actor that plays the prince, he was such a heartthrob in the day that on the Rotten Tomatoes synopsis, it reads, "This may be one of the few versions of the old Cinderella legend where the prince is better looking than Cinderella." The prince goes on and on about how he doesn't want to be a prince, basically.
Why can't I be two people?
So our power-posing prince finishes song by interrupting the king's really weird big dice game. The king, when he sees his son come home, he knights the prince and gives him this really cushy medal. Their cousin bursts in. I just don't remember his name, so we're gonna call him Tassels. He bursts in and congratulates the prince on coming home. The prince then tells the king that he did not propose to this princess he was visiting because
the lady was bald, sir. Her golden tresses false. Her mouth crabbed with age, sir, and devoid of teeth.
To which the king, naturally, responds with a song. It is a very interesting song.
Find a mate, dear boy, find a mate. Princess Susan,
Princess Karen,
Princess Kate.
Find a mate, dear boy, find a mate. Love will have to wait.
The next scene introduces us to Cinderella finally, and her stepmother and stepsisters. They have just come home from this funeral of Cinderella's father. Immediately as they get home, they just rub in Cinderella's face that her father just died, and to which Cinderella literally says straight up to their faces she hates them.
Know your present place. I hate you.
The steps basically inform her that they dismissed the staff and that she will be their servant from now on. So now that it's spring, Cinderella is singing to her father's grave, but after she sings her song, the prince shows up in what looks like a totally different place from Cinderella and this tree that she's hiding behind. But anyways, the prince walks in, points to this tomb, and is like, "This is where my dead body will go."
Very cheerful.
And you'll never guess what happens next. Yeah! Another musical number. This song is kind of weird.
Oh, ho, ho, what a comforting thing to know. There's a prearranged spot in the family plot where my royal bones will go.
Throughout the song, they kind of show Cinderella just kind of hanging out, and I don't know why, because she and the prince never even talk. She sees him and then runs away, and after the song, he's like, "Oh, a servant girl." And they never mention this again, so back to the castle, the king and his poofy-haired councilmen are looking at this map. Basically, they're trying to avoid war by getting some kind of alliance. So one poodle-headed gentleman has the brilliant idea.
I thought a ball.
This idea is so great, in fact, that they burst into song.
Yes, we must be protocolligorically correct. Good.
So not only do they burst into song, but at one point they start role-playing. And I'm just gonna say, I don't think the prince will like this Duchess very much. When Cinderella returns home from the graves, she's jump-scared by her stepmother.
No, madam!
And then is forced to chop up these vegetables, I guess. A little while later, this a totally normal woman knocks on the door, and Cinderella lets her sit by the fire.
I expect your dog is a great comfort to you.
My dog? I haven't got a dog.
Isn't he yours?
No, that's my dinner. So after this little chat between Cinderella and this totally normal lady, stepmother walks in and there's like some wind blowing, some leaves, and she turns around and the kitchen is just very shiny. So the prince is upset about this idea of the ball, enough so much so to just power pose all over. He power poses when he's so upset and sings yet another song about this
Bride-finding ball. A bride-finding ball, where every maiden's bound to laugh at me, the royal fatted calf.
However, Tassels thinks this ball is such a great idea that he also has his own little 2 cents to say about wearing high heels.
Oh, how exciting! Now, I must decide what to wear. High heels, I think, to give me added stature.
The fashion and squeezing.
Giving her best, giving her all. Dancing, glancing, laughing, teasing, whirling, swirling, touching, squeezing.
The Chamberlain then informs them that the Bald Princess's kingdom was offended and they want to wage war. So they must have this ball so that they can have an alliance in case of war, basically. The prince is still upset, and so he just power poses the Chamberlain away. So they send out all the invitations to the ball, the steps being of some nobility. They're very excited for the ball, but they can't find a dress to wear. All the shops are sold out. They want Cinderella to take 3 old dresses and make them into 3 new dresses that are stylish and hip. In like what seems to be the night. So Cinderella is pretty upset over this impossible task. Her roadkill dog goes off and finds the totally normal woman, totally normal, nothing weird about her. He brings her to Cinderella. As she comes to help Cinderella, she reveals that she is a fairy godmother. What? So fairy godmother finishes the dresses, and the next day, the Seps leave for the ball, leaving behind Cinderella, of course. So fairy godmother has to come back to Cinderella to give her a dress. Like, they don't give fairy godmother any breaks in this movie. She has to, like, drive the whole plot forward because Cinderella's, like, stuck, and then fairy godmother has to come save her, like, 4 times in this movie.
Well, I never cared much for these royal occasions myself. Too formal, and not enough to eat or drink. Still, I dare say in your heart of hearts you'd like to go.
Go? Me go to the ball?
Well, of course. That is what you were wishing, isn't it?
Not wishing exactly. Thinking what it must be like.
Same thing.
Well, sometimes I think what it would be like to be a 19th century orphan in London, but that doesn't mean I wished to be an orphan in 19th century London. Then fairy godmother uses her magic on Cinderella, transforming her dress from her current one into a very stylish pink dress and a mop into a nice big wig, and obviously the slippers. Outside, the carriage is being all prettied up, and then what the heck? Are the mice dancing? And a frog? Do they, like, make a huge set? Or are they really small? Cinderella arrives to the ball fashionably late. Everyone else seems to know that Cinderella is, like, what the prince wants because they just immediately part down the middle. And in typical fashion, everyone just watches Cinderella and the prince dance. The prince and Cinderella go out for this chat, and sorry, I'm really distracted about how these candles are staying lit in this fountain. The prince talks about love and marriage, and he asks what Cinderella thinks, and she's just like, I don't know.
I have never given the matter much thought.
Great conversation. They are truly in love. Then they sing this love song together. I don't know, am I missing something? Is this what love is? Soon it is midnight, and Cinderella runs off into this kind of clever scene of her changing back into her old dress. However, there is a lack of a mop on her, and she runs off and of course leaves her slipper. The prince finds it and has like the quietest "come back" I've ever heard.
Come back!
After this, they reminisce on the ball, and they both sing this song, which is probably the best song in this movie. It was even nominated for an Oscar, actually. It's basically I Could Have Danced All Night from My Fair Lady.
Dancing in his arms forever, my heart will never be free.
The prince also gets to sing his own verse and dances around the slipper, because that's not creepy or weird.
Arms I was ascending, at last I saw that perfect blending.
The next morning, the steps are all grouchy except for Cinderella, of course. I only mention this scene because there's this one little bit.
She was not that pretty. Striking, perhaps.
I still do not understand what joke this is supposed to be. In typical Cinderella story, shut up, chair. Like in typical Cinderella stories, the prince sets out a search with Cinderella's shoe. After a long time of searching and power posing and brooding, the prince just builds this monument and sticks the shoe in and just looks at it all the time. He's in fact so obsessed with Cinderella, he like knows to the hour the last time he saw her.
3 months, 6 days, 10 hours.
I don't know about you, Cinderella, but I think it's a good thing he can't find you. The prince talks to John, who is in love with this lady Catherine. This conversation sparks John into singing a song, of course, about positions, which is not like super interesting. It's not much of an interesting song. Somehow this song convinced the prince to knight John, or at least give him a higher ranking so he can court the lady Catherine, and he kind of just goes off, and the prince then just takes this random servant boy and he's like, "You're my servant boy." I don't know why he's country. "You're my servant boy." I don't know what accent that is. Which we never see the servant boy ever again. And he takes the slipper and just chucks it out the window. Cinderella's roadkill dog finds this slipper and brings Cinderella to the slipper, to which she dances with the slipper, because apparently that's what you do when you find a slipper. You dance. John is out with his lady friend and sees Cinderella dancing with this shoe, and he, instead of thinking, "Oh my gosh, this girl is insane, bonkers," he takes Lady Catherine and goes to find the prince, who then shows up in this very, very, very deep V-neck, and he and Cinderella finally reunite after 3 months or whatever. They go see the steps and announce that they're getting married. Cinderella leaves saying that she forgives them, and they're angry by this, but they are not important at all after this point. And we still have like half an hour of this movie to get through. The prince introduces Cinderella to the king and the queen, and they seem to like her, but then after they leave, the king reveals that he betrothed the prince to another princess. Oops. So the king sends the Lord Chamberlain to talk to Cinderella about leaving the prince so that he can marry for the kingdom and not for love and stuff. Cinderella just goes along with this plan to leave to this secret location. But she has one condition. In fact, it is such an important condition that she has a song for it, of course. The song is like, it's kind of nice. Her condition is to tell the prince that she didn't ever love him, which would be a cool plot point, you know? But who cares about that? Because the next scene, he's looking for her and confronts the king. already figured out his plan. The prince confronts the king and tells him that he'll marry whoever because his only chance of love is ruined, or some garbage like that.
You've destroyed whatever vestige of love and happiness I might have found, and you've done it in the name of patriotism.
So now we speed straight to the wedding day, where he continues to brood and sulk like he always does in this movie. For some reason, he has the slippers in his room. He gets ready and then he goes to this small chapel altar room and kneels to pray. And I don't know if it's just me, but if I see all these crosses and stuff, I'm gonna assume he's gonna pray, right? Wrong. He ain't praying to Jesus. He's praying to Cinderella.
Dearest Cinderella, forgive me. I have no heart for what I must shortly perform. My heart is yours, and yours alone.
Oh, roommate, please forgive me for clogging the toilet and then not unclogging it. I had one too many burritos last night. So we see Cinderella, and she's singing a song about how she misses her prince. And then Fairy Godmother just happens to swing by and save the day once again. Fairy Godmother convinces Cinderella to crash this wedding. The Fairy Godmother just pops in the middle of the wedding, and she magics this like clear trumpet that makes just the prettiest, clearest trumpet sound, which I can guarantee you will not come out of this plastic trumpet. And Cinderella just walks down this aisle, and like not even at like, she doesn't like go objection or anything. She just walks down the aisle in the middle of the wedding. The prince and Cinderella reunite. This princess you're supposed to marry faints from shock into Tassel's arms. You see where we're going? The kings are trying to figure out this mess of the prince not wanting to marry the princess now. And then the fairy godmother comes in to sort this whole mess out because she does everything in this freaking movie. So the kings are trying to figure out what to do because obviously the prince will not marry the princess again because Cinderella just showed up. And so the fairy godmother again saves the day and is like, look at that! And Tassels and the princess are in love, you know, because when you stare into each other's eyes, that means love. The other king even comments on Tassels and even his daughter on how much he did not really even want any of them to exist.
I speak as man to man.
I'd welcome it.
He's not what I wanted, but then neither was she.
Oh.
So that's cool. So now after that is sorted, the prince and Cinderella gets married and they live happily ever after.